But you know what? There you go. Recording has started. And we are excellent condition. Looks like we're live on YouTube, though I don't see the stream on there yet. There we go. All right. So, welcome to today's first Meet Revolutionaries number 7 here in for first one for this year, 2021. We did 6 of them last year in 2020. For the Tesla Owners Club of Orange County, I'd like to introduce Dean Fielding. Dean, why don't you say a little bit about yourself to the group here?
Hello, everyone. For those who've not seen me before, first of all, I think I'll start off with a little bit about myself, how I got into EVs, and it kind of ties in actually with the whole Land's End on a Groats trip that we did with the Roadster. So I've always been into science and technology, a bit of a geek and all that sort of stuff. Partly thanks to the infamous Top Gear episode where Jeremy Clarkson didn't positively review the Tesla. I was a little bit of a latecomer to the party with EVs, and I got my first electric car, which was the Renault Zoe, back in 2014. I love driving. I've kind of been go-kart racing semi-professionally. And when I first got in had felt the electric drive, I was like, this is so right. And then the geek in me did all the calculations and everything, and I've been hooked ever since. And I wanted to spread the word about electric vehicles, tell everyone how amazing they were. So I planned on doing a Land's End on a Groats trip back in about 2015 to try and beat the time set then by the Nissan Leaf, I think it was. Because I thought by my calculation we could probably just beat it. So I wrote to Guinness Records to see if they would recognise the event and support it. And after about a 3-month wait for them to get back to me, they said, why not do it on a mobility scooter, as there's no skill in driving. I was like, okay, that's not great. That's not what I was after. And I could pay £4,000 to have them with a certificate at the end, which I thought was a waste of money. So I ended up not doing that and doing other things. And then because of my love of motorsports, always wanted, and other obvious reasons, always wanted a Tesla Roadster. It's still the only full electric sports car that's out there. And I asked a friend of mine, Beth Lilly, if she ever heard of one coming up available, let me know. About 2 weeks later, she texted me and said, there's this one here. I went down, saw it, fell in love with it, bought it, not realising its history, but that was the first ever electric car to do that journey. And I think, is it Elon says, fate loves irony or something like that. And I thought that was amazing. And one of the other things that I think one of the myths around batteries not lasting very long was one that I wanted to kind of bust, and it was the first example of a car being around for long enough to prove that they last a long time, because it's a really hard argument to kind of argue with, because they just haven't been around for long enough to prove otherwise. And this is one of the first opportunities, the first examples. I thought it was a perfect opportunity with it being the first ever electric car to do that journey. So we decided to do the journey again. We hoped that we'd beat the original time, and we wanted to raise awareness of electric vehicles, the quality of Tesla batteries and electric vehicle batteries generally. Raise awareness of the charity Zero Carbon World that the original owner Kevin Sharp set up, that I'm now a trustee of, and have some fun. And that's exactly what we did.
Now, Dean, it's not the first time that you and the other trustees of Zero Carbon World have done this, in the past 2 years, right? I mean, last year, you guys infamously did this in a Model 3 to break one of the records going from Land's End to China Groats.
That's right.
First off, I don't know how many of the club members know what that route is. So I'm going to try to see if I can share the screen of the map that we have of the route you guys took, right? Let me see if I can do that. Share screen. Window, no, Chrome tab. All right. So that's what we're talking about as far as what they've driven.
Okay, yeah. So
go ahead.
It's called Le Jog, which is short for Land's End John O'Groats. So travelling from the very bottom of the country, which is obviously where the land ends, appropriately named, it's kind of as far south and west as you can go in England, and then it kind of scoots up around through Cornwall, Devon, up past Bristol, and then cuts up the country, right up through England. Doesn't go into Wales at any point, but kind of skirts around the edge of Wales, and then across the border into Scotland. And there's some just, fantastic scenery, fantastic charging places. Scotland's got some amazing infrastructure as well. And right the way up to the top at John O'Groats. So yeah, it's end to end as far as you can go in each direction in the UK.
Now, on the Model 3 attempt that you guys did last year that broke that record, you guys actually went the other direction, which is harder because the prevailing winds. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Generally, the prevailing wind travels from the east to the west, and kind of. You'd think going downhill would be easier, of course, but usually the prevailing wind's going the wrong way, and it's just a little bit colder up there. So when we did the record attempt last year, in fact, I should just clarify the Guinness record, because they don't encourage racing on public roads for obvious reasons. The actual record is for the shortest amount of time spent charging the car. So obviously the Roadster got that because it was the first time any car had done it. And then the Tesla Model 3 got that last year because of the improvements in technology. But we lost probably, I think we probably could have done it about 15 minutes less charging time had we have preheated the pack first, because we didn't realise how much energy it would suck up heating the pack with the performance Model 3, because there's no range mode on Model 3, and then straight into the prevailing wind and a bit of rain. So we lost a little bit of time there on the original run, which didn't really help matters. But yeah, we still smashed it. It was like 2 hours faster than the previous time.
Excellent. Yeah, so I mean, you seem to like to take these long drives. You really should visit the U.S. And I mean, the next time you're here, I mean, I know the last time you were in Texas.
That's right.
But the next time you're out here, you should
totally enjoy it
and drive, because there's a lot of places to drive and go far.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list.
To that end, another image that you and I discussed, though it doesn't really convey the length of your drive because of obviously the way the highways are here and the way you guys had to do over there, is overlaying. Being a club in Orange County, California, to give a good scope of how big the United Kingdom is overlaid on California, we found an image that we want to share as well. So let me just share that. Like Chrome tab. I think it's this one. Google image result. Yeah, so it seems shorter, but Dean, you did a Google one from San Diego up to Oregon, and that was actually shorter than the number of miles you guys had because of the way the route was going. But that's just a good way to visualize. I mean, I like to see, a lot of people are more visual than they are mathematic, even though you get the actual miles driven on the.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it really helps with context, doesn't it? It's yeah.
Yep. Well, it also explains, I think they say that the California economy is typically the 6th or 7th largest in the world. So,
wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dean, one of the other things that you mentioned in the introduction is that you fell in love with this Roadster. You bought it not knowing the background to the Roadster. So I thought it's kind of funny. I mean, it's really ironic in the true sense, not in the Alanis Morissette sense of the word, on the history of that particular Roadster and using that to fight battery longevity FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people that are against electric vehicles who like to say that, yeah, but after a couple of years, you're just going to have to dump those batteries and throw them in the landfill. So what good is it?
Yeah.
Your
that
particular
was one
Roadster,
of our main motivating factors. The exact thing that you just said there.
Correct. I mean, the original owner to your Roadster was a top member of the community named Kevin Sharp, who also founded the charity that you find yourself as a trustee, but you didn't even know about them before you bought the car, right? I mean, you got introduced to them and then you found out about them and all that sort of stuff.
I've used Zero Carbon World charge points and not really noticed, to be honest. They were really, really helpful. So in the UK, home charging is pretty well covered for those lucky enough to have a drive, which is a significant proportion of the population. And rapid charging is pretty well covered at service stations. But there's not much support for destination chargers. So I think the way that I think that Zero Carbon World is really effective is it's because it's a charity, it's managed, and because of the hard work that Kevin did in the early days, it's managed to get access to some very low cost and reliable 7 kilowatt charging stations. A little bit like the Tesla destination charging scheme. And basically it offers those to businesses. It offers one free. If they want more, they can buy more. And the idea is that it dangles that carrot in front of the business and gets them interested in getting something for free. Now, they still have to pay for the upkeep and the installation, but the idea is it creates a win-win situation where the business, we have, I guess you must have something similar in America, I have a thing called ZapMap in the UK. Mm-hmm. So the business gets their premises on ZapMap. So as I'm sure you all agree with, any owner of an electric car, if you're going to go to a hotel, you're going to go to a restaurant, if you see that it's got a charge point, you're more likely to visit that venue and spend money there. So it attracts custom to their business, and it benefits their customers because they can charge their car, and it helps expand the network of EVs. And it's done really, really good work. It's installed over 700 charge points across the UK. I'm trying to use my expertise in charging. I've had a business installing charge points in the UK. So I've got a lot of kind of transferable skills. Hopefully I can help the charity to continue its mission. And we're also looking at some other angles to do with decarbonising the heating in the UK as well, which is some of my expertise from my profession, which is in the construction industry. So that's a bit of a kind of background on the charity and how it works and how it's tried to be a catalyst for electric vehicles in the UK.
Yeah, it's for you guys, it's heating you got to worry about. For us here, it's cooling, right? For the most part, we're in a desert, so it's hot. Parts of the time where there's not enough water. But it's just the other side of the coin. Some would say, I mean, and like you said, you're later into the Tesla world than others because you started off in a Zoe, and I've often found that folks that move into Tesla from some other EVs tend to appreciate Tesla greater because, frankly, you're used to having driven other EVs, which were good, but you see the market difference, and moving from ICE to EV is definitely a big change. But and any EV is a good improvement from that. The one thing that you mentioned was Zero Carbon World was like the destination chargers. Actually, if you look at the history, it seems to me that two things have really helped develop the destination charging program for Tesla. Number one was the old referral program for the Roadsters, where if you were a Roadster owner and you were referred another person to buy a Roadster, Tesla gave you one of the HPCs as a, for the referral. And what a lot of people did was they used that donated one to get it to a destination so that the West Coast, we had a network of Roadster chargers that went up and down the coast that allowed people to travel. I mean, there was a famous one that used to be in Barstow, California, to get people to Vegas. There are several up and down the coast. I mean, in fact, the one in Atascadero, I mean, the Rabobanks used to have a lot of them, and they changed to the J1772. So if you're driving a Roadster, which could charge at 70 amps, and you come across it, and at certain times you'd look at it, and those Rabobank chargers had would have like a Chevy Volt plugged into them, since the J1772 standard was formed after the Tesla Roadster proprietary. So, and then additionally, outside of that, the Zero Carbon World Destination Charger program actually started, earlier than Tesla's own destination chargers. So, some would say that perhaps it was influenced by that as well. And then here in the U.S., for U.S. viewers and club members, we're familiar with. I always like to say that Adopt a Charger is kind of like your twin in the U.S. So their focus now is more into public spaces. I mean, they've been putting a lot more into public land, such as national parks, state parks, that sort of thing, so that people can go enjoy nature.
Yeah.
And normally, if you're going to go for a hike, you can plug in for an hour and gain back enough energy, get back to the nearest town or whatever, and the nearest DC if you needed to.
Yeah, that's it. That's very similar to Zero Carbon World. We fitted a lot of charge points in national parks and rural areas, where it's not worth, in the early days, spending the huge amount of money fitting rapid chargers in that area. And if you do fit them in that area, it's like, where do you pick? Because there's no main route through. But the destination charge points in key areas work really, really well. They're low cost and they're very effective because you're at the destination for a long time. And sadly, there's very little government support for that kind of thing in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's really a commercialization of. I mean, same thing in the U.S., right? I mean, there's these mandates to electrify certain states, California being the first one, and then I think New Jersey, Massachusetts, a few others have joined in, and they're looking to do that. But it's all an economic calculus at the moment, right? For that, and that's cool. But as going back to your Roadster, I mean, I want to just focus in on the irony of the battery, because we didn't really explain that yet. So you bought the car because it was the very first one there, and you did the same thing that a lot of us that are Tesla owners do, which is dangerous. You test drive one of these things, you fall in love with them, and you have to buy them, right? It's just
that's right.
That's how everyone ends up with their first Tesla. I mean, it's just fate. And you didn't know that actually Kevin, who was a great proponent for Teslas in the early days, had a falling apart because he thought that there was something wrong with his pack. And this is documented all throughout Twitter. I mean, all you had to do was look at his Twitter account and you would have found this back then. But you got it without knowing that this pack had a problem that obviously you've disproved by doing this drive. Okay, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it has got degradation. It's an 11.5-year-old pack, right? And whether, I don't know, I'd need to go into all the data to find out if it's more than average or less than average or whatever. I don't know. And obviously it's a shame about how it got pointed out to me. Yeah, I'm not going to mention names, but somebody pointed it out to my wife and said you bought a wreck and all things, and it's like, oh my god, why? And then I heard the thing, and maybe it was to be fair, like, no one knew the degradation curve. We all know now degradation, you lose 5-6% in the first year, and then it's about 1% a year after that, or something to that effect. And yeah, we just didn't know. And to be honest, I haven't looked into all the details because it's history now. But the point is, the battery still works. It's, well, as you'll find out, we did the trip very, very successfully. The car, I was speaking to Kevin just before the trip. I had a chat with him, and you know, he expressed an interest in, you know, the old pack. He said, you know, there'll be people queuing up to buy the old pack to use it as a second use for energy storage when it finally reaches the end of its useful life in a vehicle. So yeah, it's I think it fits really well, and you know, it's not. In some ways, I suppose it's better that you could argue that it's not the perfect battery that's been absolutely nursed from day one, and it's been, you know, it's a real world battery. It has had some degradation. It still works fine. It's done 63,000 miles, that car now. So I know it's relatively low mileage in some ways for a 10-year-old car, but for a roadster, that's quite high, because a lot of them they're just parked in the garage and used on a weekend, and they're lucky to have 10,000 miles on some of them after 10 years. You know, it's some of them don't get used much at all. So yeah, I think it's a positive, really. So shall I run through the trip and the
Yeah, please. I wanted to get some history, background, and everything on it.
yeah.
And I think we've done a good idea on that. And yeah, please share how it went. Let's focus on the Roadster trip, because that's the most recent one, and that's the one that really is interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's
and hold on, Dean. Just want to make sure, because we had some people join us, and this is an open conversation, folks. So if you have questions of Dean, you can either, if you don't feel like unmuting and speaking up, and we are recording this, so if you don't want your video on, turn your video off, or send it in chat. You know, we want to make this an interactive conversation. And with that, Dean, the floor is yours again.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Any questions? I don't know if I can see the chat, and I don't want to turn my video off. Let me just see. Oh yeah. If you can see the questions and the chat at the same time, if there are any questions you want to ask me that you think would be relevant, please do, because I can't see the questions in the chat.
That's just me rambling in the chat.
Okay, Jamie.
Jamie likes to have some comments in the background, and it always fills it in so much more for those of us that are participating live, which means if you're a club member that didn't participate live and you're watching this on a recording, we missed you, but you know what? You also missed Jamie's chats, so do join us for those.
Okay. So
you saw how many words I can write in the article. The fingers have to move.
That's fine. So yeah, any questions, shout up, or if you see them come up in the chat, David, just let me. Dennis, please let me know. Yeah, the trip. Obviously, you'll get why I did it. I'm sure you've all been asked the question: what about when your batteries last only a few years and you have to throw them away? And yeah, I don't like it when how would I put it? I don't like it when people have got a point that they're trying to put across that I don't think's right. So thought this was a perfect example. So we planned the trip actually just over 12 months ago. We were going to do it when the car was 10 years old, and at the time it had a 9.5-year-old battery pack. But with COVID, everything got postponed. We planned on having the car at the Fully Charged live event in Farnborough, which I highly recommend you visiting if you ever get the chance, or the one in Austin. I think it's in April next year. If that's a little nearer. Very, very good event. So we plan to have the car on static display there. We got some great sponsorship to raise money for the charity. Got some fantastic companies put their names on the car, which are all mentioned in the Electrek article. Lots of planning. We invited David Pilo, who did the original run in the Tesla Roadster with Kevin Sharp, who's fantastic at planning and organising things. He'd scheduled every charging stop and worked out all the timings and everything. He'd done a fantastic job and printed a sheet off so that I didn't get lost, basically, which was very helpful. A guy called Evan Tour, who's the most interesting guy ever to talk to about batteries and old EVs. He knows everything that there is to know, and he's done some fantastic like conversion and maintenance stuff. He helped share the drive, just for mostly for kind of safety reasons. We wanted to make sure that we got plenty of backup drivers and we could get some rest. And then a guy called Glyn Hudson of Open Energy Monitor. Now he's got an interesting story with this specific car. So he makes smart chargers that using I think it's a Raspberry Pi and some very clever software. He can basically monitor solar generation, economy tariffs, all sorts of things like that. So you can charge your car at the cheapest and most eco-friendly rate possible. Now, one of the things that got him, or the main thing I think that got him into all this stuff, was this particular car. So he lives in North Wales, in a pretty remote area called Bangor in North Wales. And Kevin was involved in doing some hydroelectric work about 8 or 9 years ago, I think it was. And he drove from where he lives to North Wales. And Glyn was there at this event, and he took photos of the car, and he was just in absolute disbelief that an electric car had driven there, like at all. He just couldn't believe it was possible. And he was so blown away by it all. That's what triggered his interest. And he now manufactures electric vehicle charge points and other energy monitoring stuff in the UK. So it was really nice to be able to share the drive with him. And yeah, it was a really great experience. And he's done a really good video as well of the event. So yeah, we got everyone together. Now, the single only modification we've made to the car, because I have to confess we did make one modification as a bit of an insurance policy, that we basically fitted a is it JDMO or CHAdeMO adapter to the car, so that we can basically take advantage of the rapid charging network in the UK now. With the old
Your audio just cut out, Dean. Can't hear you. Your audio cut out.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, about 3. I don't know how much of that you heard, but
last was you guys had as an insurance policy the JDMO, which is a CHAdeMO adapter that
that's right.
that our friends in San Diego from Quick Charge Power created.
That's
Tony
right.
Williams.
Yeah.
That was actually in development during an EV meetup that used to happen in Orange County, actually LA County and Cerritos, and Orange County thing at Orange at some hometown buffets every other Saturday, with basically many of those folks are members of the club. Actually, now they're Tesla owners, but a lot of them had started off as Leaf owners and Volt owners that were just getting together, and they were 3D printing the port, copying them and that sort of thing. And that's how the JDMO product actually came about. So you do have a little connection to Southern California by using a JDMO
That's nice.
adapter.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that it's a bolt-on and bolt-off thing. So and I've still obviously got all the original parts, so it can still preserve the car exactly as it originally was. And a guy called Neil Wise, Wise Engineering Limited, he fitted the kit, and I just wanted to thank him as well because he fitted it in like last minute. So I drove the car from Sheffield in the UK down to Farnborough International Airport for the Fully Charged live show, and then left the car there. And Lewis Black drove it from there to Neil's. I went home because it was 2 weeks before the event. Neil was away, and then like he came back. It was like late one night, and then ended up working through the day and night to get this part fitted, and did an amazing job. And then we picked the car up, so let me run through the sequencing. So I
Dean,
traveled
before you get there, just had a couple of questions on chat that we think,
Okay.
And it's a good way to frame also how the records are set for Ledgog because it's on public roads as opposed to,
Yes.
how we do the Cannonball here in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
So the question are kind of related. It's from the same person. So did you get any speeding tickets along the drive? And what was the average speed limit throughout your drive? I guess is the two questions.
Okay, so it's been more than 2 weeks now, which means that I don't think I've got any speeding tickets for the journey, which is always a good thing. But no, we stuck to the speed limits for the whole journey. Now, to answer the question about the average speed, so I think the average speed, including charging stops, I think worked out at 40 miles per hour, just over. Yeah. But the average speed limit, the vast majority of the road was 70 miles per hour, which is what we did for the most of the journey. We took it ever so slightly easy on the first leg, just to make sure things kind of warmed up okay and everything was all the temperatures were correct and everything was fine. And there was a little bit of bad weather and stuff, so we kind of maybe did about 65 on the first leg, where it was 70. But most of the first leg was less than 60 miles an hour limit anyway, because it was more rural roads for the first part. But yeah, from then onwards, it was pretty much 70 miles an hour all the way, apart from the last bit again in Scotland on the rural roads where it was 60. And we just stuck to the speed limits for the whole journey, really.
Seems like speed limits is a popular topic. So another question on chat is, are speeding tickets as expensive as the U.S.? So I guess the question is, how much are speeding tickets? And the fact that you had to wait 2 weeks, does that mean that the UK is one of those jurisdictions that allows speeding tickets to be calculated by speed cameras solely?
Most of Europe does speed cameras, I think, or a lot of Europe does.
Well, because here in America, right? I mean, there's some places that allow that, and some places that you're not allowed to.
Here we consider it a big American like privacy individualism kind of thing. Like there has to be a cop there catching you, or else it doesn't count.
Which is why people are able to do the cannonball in the speeds that they do.
Is that like if a tree falls in a forest and nobody hears it? Did it really make a sound?
Exactly.
Yeah, so quick summary of the speeding rules in the UK as I understand it. Now, yes, it is cameras. Like you don't have to have a police officer there. We're starting to have a thing called smart motorways now, where every so many 100 yards there's a bridge over the motorway with cameras on it, and speed limits can change. They can put warnings up on notices and stuff, and they are pretty smart. I know of somebody who got a speeding ticket for driving it. I think they were driving at about 65 miles an hour in a 70 with a car that could do 70, but with a trailer on. So they should have been doing 55, I think, 50, 55. And the camera knew that they somehow had a trailer on. I presume it was the camera. I presume it wasn't monitored all the time. And they got a ticket. So they're pretty smart, some of the cameras. So you do have to be careful. In fairness, the traffic does seem to flow better. We don't get the kind of phantom braking where everyone's up to 70, 80, 90 miles an hour and then slam on the brakes and then all that kind of weird stuff doesn't seem to happen anymore. But yeah, it is a bit boring as well. And to answer the question on the cost, I think it's about £80 for the ticket, I think. But if you're only about 10% over the speed limit, there's a thing called a speed awareness course, which I confess I have been on one. Where they try and re-educate you about the importance of doing the speed limit. And one last note, near where I live, there's an area that gets bad pollution from the M1 motorway, which is one of the main roads up the UK. And on the smart motorway, they've recently been reducing the speed limit for air pollution to try and help combat air pollution. I haven't dared try it yet, but I'd be interested to know if an EV should be able to do 70 miles an hour.
That's actually a thing that I don't know if this law has gone into place anywhere, but I have heard people proposing laws that electric cars should have higher speed limits in situations like that where they lower the speed limit for congestion reasons. There have been people saying like, well, if you're lowering the speed limit for that, then why should electric cars have to follow that? However, in terms of safety, you want everyone to be going the same speed. So I think that since the law, you've got multiple influences, they probably should just say, no, it would be stupid to have electric cars weaving through everybody on the road, and
it'd be quite fun, but very stupid.
Yeah. But then things like congestion charges in downtown London, for example, the electric cars get through on that because that's mainly to reduce local air pollution.
Yeah.
And the electric cars are not contributing to that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So based on current exchange rates, it's like $1.36 to £1. I remember visiting the UK when it was $2 at a pound. So 80 pounds seems like a bargain to get caught for speeding.
Yeah.
Compared to what we pay for tickets out here. Pardon?
I think the expensive part is your insurance.
Oh, well, if you're only visiting, then that's just part of the rental.
So,
okay.
So you get the fine, but then when you notify your insurance company, when you try and get insurance next time, it'll be much more expensive.
I believe the fines here in California, hi, this is Diana, are more expensive because the ticket is one thing, but then you have the court fees, the police local fees, the municipality fees, and all these fees make the ticket. If it was $100 ticket, you end up with maybe $300 or $400 ticket with all these added taxes and added fees, if you will, not taxes but fees.
Yeah.
So, but I guess it's good to keep that in mind if we ever visit England.
Then
have
you
fun.
want to have to come back for the speed awareness course. That's the speed awareness course is great because you don't actually get any penalty points on your license or an official ticket if you opt to take the course. So,
yeah, we have a thing like that called traffic school that you can do here too.
Yeah.
I've never done it since I'm a perfect driver. All you people here.
Well, that's one of the things about the safety score that everybody's been working towards if they have a newer car, right? I mean, I don't know if you're trying that out with the Model 3 at your house, Jamie, but
it's my safety score. I have a Roadster. My safety score is 100.
There you go.
Oh, no way. That's not even possible.
Actually, yesterday I went to a wedding in Topanga Canyon and I drove my mom's Model 3. And at the end of the night, there was nobody on the road. So I was glad that we hadn't activated safety score yet because I definitely would have gotten some lateral acceleration dings.
Yeah, those canyons are pretty fun to drive.
Yeah. My friend in the wedding during the vows, he's like, blah, blah, blah. We had this wedding in a global pandemic and climate change. And also we put it at the end of a road that only rally drivers can drive on. I raised my hand real high.
All right. Sorry, Dean. We took you off course there, but
it's fine.
Like I said, it's conversational, so go right. Take it on where you were at your story. I think you were picking up the car and getting ready for the trip.
Yeah, so I was just about to kind of go through the sequence of getting ready for the trip. Thanks to I'm just going to give a little shout out here to our little mascot that travelled on the journey, our little octopus from Octopus Energy, which is a relatively new energy company in the UK that's doing some amazing work disrupting the energy market for the better, hopefully, with clean and cheap energy from renewables. They sponsored the event. They donated some money to the charity, and
he's in England.
Gave us a car, a support vehicle, basically, for the journey. yeah, we had a Model 3. I basically put spare set of wheels and tyres in the event that we had a puncture, so it didn't ruin the event. And just, it was an extra car for people to have a rest. And it wasn't intended, I want to make it clear, it wasn't intended as a slipstreaming vehicle. We didn't, follow close behind it to try and get a slipstream or anything like that. It was entirely like an emergency support capacity, really. But it was great to have. So after the Fully Charged show, which was amazing, I travelled back home, and then on the Thursday, I think it was, Thursday morning, I set off in the Model 3 from my home. I had a fantastic journey, and it was just a standard range plus, incredibly efficient. It had the slipstream wheels on it, rear wheel drive. Drove it down from Sheffield to Bristol. I stayed at John Lewis and had some nice soup and looked over Bristol while it charged up, and then carried on down to the Tiverton train station, where I met Glyn Hudson. Then we went from there to just around the corner from Tiverton is Neil Wise, where we picked up the Roadster after he'd done the work on it. We took it for a test, but it was nearly fully charged, so we couldn't test it very much. And then drove it from there down to the Land's End hostel, where we stayed over. And so we arrived on the Friday morning. So we had a full day in hand, ready to kind of just make sure everything was prepared, and we were prepared and not too tired before we started the journey. So we fully charged the car down there, using a little destination charger. We had a great day on the Friday. Even managed to fit in some surfing, which was great fun.
Anyone on the list, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the second part of it. The first place is where to get coffee from.
Oh,
Had to mute somebody that just joined us.
It's all right. That's fine. So we were all prepared, and then so the plan the next morning was for us to set off at 6. We set off at just after 6:30. We've got the route planned. We're going to meet David in Bristol. So now then, what did I do with the Model 3? Oh, that's right. I left the Model 3 at Neil Wise's, and David picked up the Model 3 from Neil's, took it home, and then met us at Bristol. So
when did you do the surfing? Because obviously you're talking to a bunch of Orange County folks here, and we're kind of famous for having Surf City and Huntington Beach right off the coast here.
Actually,
and I didn't realize you were a surfer, and I didn't realize that the surf was good in England. So
so there's the first time I went surfing, I was probably about 10 years old, I think. There's a place called Fistral Bay, and there's a few good places: Woolacombe, Ilfracombe, Fistral Bay. In like Devon and Cornwall is really, really good. Kind of basically just catches the waves from the Atlantic, and some nice kind of long, gradual, flat beaches that you get some good rollers coming in. And there's a little bay near Sennen, which is a couple of miles from Land's End, and I think you'll see, if you see Glenn's video, you'll see there's a little clip from there as surfing. Unfortunately, the cap on it. Oh, thank you.
Just thought I'd share a little photo. I had to go look for that. But
I hate
you're talking about your setup and everything,
I hate cold
right?
water, hence the wetsuit. I literally turn blue if I go in cold water.
You got to use a really, really short board on that car, though, right?
Yeah, that's right. Either that or take the top off and just have it sticking out the top. But,
hanging out the passenger seat.
But yeah, unfortunately, Glenn's GoPro, the cap wasn't on properly. so it got full of water as soon as we went in the sea. So we didn't get much footage, unfortunately. But yeah, we had some great fun. But yeah, I love surfing. I really like going out past where the waves are breaking and just laying on the board and just floating on the ocean. And you feel quite insignificant, don't you, when there's that huge ocean around you? And yeah, it's quite an experience. Yeah, it's good. So
excellent. Sorry, I had to interrupt because we were around the time you were talking about that, and then you were going on to picking up David Pilo and getting the Model 3 dropped off.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you
yeah.
inserted that surfing trip then, or was it later, or when did that happen?
Yeah, no, that was on the Friday when it was just Glyn and I. But yeah, I'd love to go surfing USA one day. Yeah, that's on my bucket list. Well, when we get electric jets, I might be able to make that journey more often. So yeah, so we set off. We got up at about 5:30 a.m. Had a little bit of breakfast and had a walk down. It was about a mile walk from the hostel to where the car was on the destination charger, and unplugged the car and off we went. And I took things nice and easy for the first part of the journey. The car, I can't remember what it had charged to. I think it was like 97% or something like that. So we set off. It was a bit damp and cool first thing. It wasn't forecast to be raining, but there was kind of like a misty rain in the air. So it was quite damp. You'll see on the time lapse video. It wasn't great. I should have got a list of charging stops and run you through each individual one, and I haven't done that. That would have been a good idea. But we basically stopped at the first charging point, plugged in, worked straight away. Got 50 kilowatts charging speed. So I think the average stopping time was about 30 minutes. It didn't seem long at all. The JDMO kit worked really well. We did find there were a couple of things that kind of slight nuances specific to the Roadster and stuff that I had to kind of mess around with a little bit on some of the charging stations and stuff. But that worked really well. The efficiency was great. We did have some. In fact, that was another sponsorship thing we had. So Continental donated some of their latest Eco Contact 6 tires for the trip, and I think that helped quite a lot. I think it's the Yokohama tires are about F rating or something like that on their EU efficiency label, and the Continentals, of course, were an A. So that helped the efficiency. But yeah, I think it's credit to the engineering and the technology in the original Roadster. Even though it's moved on so much, it was so advanced at the time. It's still comparable to times in other regular EVs that are doing the journey now. Yeah, I was quite nervous and focused all the time on the journey. And there's the OVMS Glyn had set up on the car, and I was monitoring that. We were both checking it and kind of had a bit of a SpaceX vibe going on. We got checking the battery temperature and checking the motor temperature, and I was like, everything's nominal. It's like.
So do you actually not have the OVMS normally installed in your Roadster? Because
so Glyn installed it about 2 years ago,
okay.
And I hardly use it, and then he did some updates or something on it, and now it's all working properly. So
is it the second gen ones that still run on 3G on 2G, or did you get the newer one that goes on I think 3G or LTE?
I think it's the new one. But to be honest with you,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean, because I use it all the time, and
yeah.
They're great. I love it.
Having 3G, there's a really, really bad signal spot right where we live, and in our garage, the signal drops out. So
yeah, because the newer one actually can run on Wi-Fi, and for those that aren't Roadster owners, and obviously we're all Tesla owners in the call here. One of the things that Tesla learned from the community was the importance of telematics, right? The telematics on Roadsters was created by the community. I mean, on TeslaMotorsClub.com, There have been a bunch of really technical people that own roadsters and built a way to tap in and be able to do a lot of the stuff that we take for granted as Model S, Model 3, Model Y, Model X owners, that really roadster owners had to build themselves. One of that is, one of the latest releases right now that came out with the latest release of software is the ability to change your charging on your app so that you can dial down the amperage or fiddle with scheduled servicing right on the app if you have both the latest version of the app and 2021.36 for your release. That's great.
I've not got that yet on the X.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's on the latest release. You can do that from the app, right?
Yeah.
On the Roadster, we've had that for years, right? I mean, you just have to buy a separate kit to install it, all the other stuff, and people actually, it's not like Tesla helped develop this. The community had to hack it and figure it out themselves. It's been quite good on what we've learned as both owners and what we shared with Tesla to get them to make a better product.
And here's what it looks like on my screen. It's just, you can see the tire PSI, temperatures, and all that kind of stuff, which is
it just went to sleep.
Tap your screen.
Just really cool to know that wasn't engineered by Tesla. That was some guy with a GitHub account who put it all together and sent it out, and got a custom designed $100 box from some random Chinese place. You order it and it takes 3 weeks to get there, and you put a prepaid SIM card into it and spend $3 a month or whatever, and you've got connection to your car. You can start and stop charging and all that stuff. Of course, it has to have good cell signal, like everyone was saying, which mine never does. So my car hasn't responded in 77 minutes.
Yeah, if you get a new one, it can go on Wi-Fi, Jamie.
Yeah, you can see the battery charge.
Put out until 2G dies. Mark Webb Johnson is the guy who runs most of Open Vehicles. He's the public face for it.
And they made it for some other cars too. I think the Leaf had it, and some of the early electric cars all had it. And then all the manufacturers are like, "Well, yeah, this is great. Why don't we do this?" And now every car has an app, which is
it's so useful.
Great. Yeah.
Well, it's more powerful than some of the other ones. So I know people that have added that box on their own cars, and on the standard cars, non-Tesla ones, they all have the ODB port that they can connect through. Whereas
and the benefit is that everything goes through the same ODP port on the same CAN bus, so you can read everything that the car has going on instead of having like multiple things you have to plug into or whatever.
Exactly. And the Tesla one, it's a proprietary plug, so they have to hack it.
Yeah, but so that kit was amazing. So we were checking tire temperatures, tire pressures, battery temperature, power electronics module, motor temperature, and I think the word of the day was nominal. We kept checking it; everything was nominal. I love it when the SpaceX team say that word, and there's like something amazing happening, and there's like all the rocket going off, and it's the most exciting thing ever, and the best word they can come up with is nominal. But obviously, that it was great. The way that the Roadster handled the rapid charging and things that it wasn't, I suppose, particularly designed for. It kept the battery temperature no higher than 40. I think it was 41 degrees was the maximum. Kept it between 40 and 41 degrees. Very, very, very good thermal management of the whole system. And
that's pretty low. I would expect it to go a little higher than that at peak. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
I've certainly gotten mine to higher than that before. When I was one time, my car shut down when I was driving up to my friend's house, and it was 110. So that would be like 43 or something like that outside. Like that was the exterior temperature. And then I was driving on the freeway. And as soon as I got off the freeway and there was less wind going in the car, my battery temperature shot up to like 124 or 129 or something like that. And then the car was just like, nope, we're not going anywhere. Stop somewhere. So I ran into the party, grabbed a bag of ice, and just put it on the PEM. And it was great. It worked fine. And then on the way home, my car's beeping at me saying moisture warning. Well, yeah, okay, just put a bag of ice on the PIM. So.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I remember someone who did something like that to their Renault Zoe battery pack. So the heating and cooling is not great on the pack on the Zoe.
No. Well, you're not expecting 105-degree days, you know.
It had been hot, and I'd been driving it quite enthusiastically, and came home, put it onto charge, and nothing happened. So I did a bit of liquid cooling on the pack underneath with the hose pipe, and it worked fine. But not recommended. So
that's I think that's one of the things that's good about early EVs, especially the Leafs, which were air cooled, and the temperature and the weather you guys get in the United Kingdom. I mean, it's ideal because it doesn't get too hot nor too cold.
No.
For the batteries to really lengthen. I mean, whereas there were thank goodness for Arizona that taught the people with Nissan Leafs that the heat really is a killer of EVs and the batteries that are in them. So people can.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Like, it's all thanks to the ocean and the Earth's cooling system with the Gulf Stream. It keeps us warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. I always find it interesting to follow the latitude lines around, see how some places that are even further south than us are much colder in the winter and much, places that get very hot in the middle of the continents and things in the summer. So, but we do get a lot of rain from it as well. I had a great time at the all the stops. Friendly fellow EV owners. It's getting really busy now as well. I think we had a little bit of luck on our side, considering that we managed to get charged at all the different stations pretty much straight away. I think we had to wait for about 30 seconds at one of them. But the car handled it amazingly well. I was thinking, so in terms of how fast we were driving and how long we thought it was going to take, the original journey took over 36 hours. I think our best prediction was about 22 and a half hours. That was assuming that we've got the 50 kilowatt charging. Now, obviously, on the original journey, it was the HPC, which is about 14 kilowatts. That was much longer. And we didn't know if we might, you never know if the JMO kit's going to work or if you have to use that as a fallback or how long it's going to take. I was slightly apprehensive as to whether we'd even beat the original time. You're always not sure if something's going to go wrong. And I really didn't want that to happen because I didn't want it to be a story of like, we did it again, but it was slower because it just doesn't have the same kind of message. As we're kind of doing each stop, I think the car was more efficient than we expected, so we needed to charge for less time. And even so, then we were like really confidently doing 70 miles an hour on the motorway, just going as fast as we could. And the car was just doing great. I think the only thing by the end of the journey, the only thing that was flagging a bit was us. We were shattered. We couldn't do it again, but I think the car could have quite easily continued and gone all the way back. The car just performed amazingly well. We had a slight hiccup around, so heading up through Bristol is quite a busy area. There was some hold up on the motorway. The traffic came to a standstill for about 5 minutes, and then we set off again, and then the traffic came to a standstill again, and we just managed to get off an exit. It still added more than 30 minutes to the journey, and we had to kind of go back roads, but that was okay. And then so one of the people that sadly didn't manage to take part in the journey, but we were hoping that they would, was Alexander Sims, who's been on here before, the Formula E racing driver. He's really, really nice guy and trustee of the charities. So he planned on doing a stint in the journey to kind of give us guys a break. and unfortunately he had a little disaster at home. Had a water leak, so I had to call an emergency plumber out. So he managed to meet us, but he didn't get time to do the actual journey. So yeah, nice to meet him and have some photos and stuff. But yeah, sadly he didn't manage to take part. So a bit more driving for us. But to be honest, it was easier than I thought it was going to be. It just went so well. It's yeah, I think I'm still a bit overwhelmed, to be honest, that it worked and we did it so fast. Yeah, I think I like to kind of plan everything to think that worst case scenario, and I think I'm quite pleasantly surprised when it actually goes better than that. So yeah, we were going along so well, and even despite the delay that we had, so we were still ahead of schedule. We ended up about 2 hours ahead of schedule at some point. We did have a slight problem that I didn't want to make a huge thing about publicly, because it was basically our fault for misunderstanding how the JDMO kit works, and I thought that the kind of general public don't need to worry about it, and it isn't an EV problem. It was our problem. But basically, I misunderstood the way that the JDMO kit worked. So apparently the Tesla, and you guys probably know more than I do about this, but apparently the Tesla pack runs particularly low voltages in the cells, lower than most of the manufacturers. And the JDMO kit needs a particular voltage for it to start working. Now, my understanding of it was that if the Roadster goes down to the bit of where it says, I don't know if you guys have ever been in this mode, I don't think I have, where it says cannot calculate range, then it means that the voltage is that low you can't plug in and charge on the JDMO kit. So we're like, right, we need to be really careful and avoid that situation. So in standard mode, we were thinking that if we leave a buffer of about 20 miles, that should be plenty. Because then you can also stick it in range mode and you've got about another 15 or 20 on top of that. So we thought we got plenty in hand and that was safe. And then on the way to one of the, it was Perth charging station for the Charge Place Scotland. So Evan was driving and I was like pushing him on. We stopped. I had quite a short stop at the previous, I think it was Abington services. And I just said, yeah, just push on. It's going really, really well. Do 70 miles an hour all the way. The range dropped a little bit more than I expected. Not a lot, but it went slightly below the 20-mile threshold, down to about 18 miles. I thought, oh, it's fine. We've got loads in hand. Plugged the car in, didn't charge. I kind of, oh my God, no, what are we going to do? It's a disaster. Couldn't fit. And then eventually we realised it had crossed this low voltage threshold. And with hindsight, if I'd have just put it in range mode, I think it might have changed things and told the JDMO kit that it can charge. But what we should have done is, instead of driving around trying different CHAdeMO plugs, we should have just plugged it in AC, pop it up a little bit, and then plug the JDMO back in. But I'd never used the kit before. I misunderstood the information, and that caused us a bit of a delay. But it was kind of like, fortunately, no drama in the end, and we carried on our journey. But yeah, it's I think that was the only stressful situation on the whole journey.
You guys have a lot faster AC charging than us here anyway, just on a regular plug, since everything's 240, right? Like, even if you just had to find like a normal outlet somewhere that's not like an electric car charger, like,
yeah.
So what, 240, 13 amps? Is that your
Yeah,
or 230?
240, 13 amps. So that gives you about 3.1 kilowatts.
yeah. And ours is 1.3 or 4.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, because you're half the amps, aren't you? Half the volts.
Half the volts. 12 amps.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so the Roadster can actually charge at a full 13 amps, 240 volts. However, in the whole of the UK, all of the like officially manufactured granny leads, as we call them, with the 3-pin plug adapter, they all do 10 amps. It's just a bit of a safety margin because the plugs get pretty hot if you charge at a full 13 amps. You can do it, but it's pushing the limits a little bit. And the 13 amp plug, although it is a 13 amp plug, it's only really designed to kind of boil a kettle to make a cup of tea. It's not designed to sit there for like 20 hours to charge an EV, and things get pretty hot. So all EV chargers generally have a 10 amp fuse in them and charge at 10 amps or less. I think the Zoe only charges at about 7 or 8 amps. I've actually measured it. It's not very much at all, about 1.7, 1.8 kilowatts. So, yeah, and the 32 amp charges 7 kilowatt. So, yeah, interestingly, the Zoe can charge at 43 kilowatts AC.
Yeah, I was blown away when you told me that because of the 3-phase thing.
Yeah. It's a pretty clever trick that Renault did with the car. So they basically used, as I understand it, they've used the rectifier or inverter between the battery pack that converts the DC power from DC into AC for the AC motor. They somehow feed the power backwards through that into the battery pack using that.
That's how the Roadster charges on AC, isn't it?
Sorry?
That's why it makes all that racket, is because it's using the motor.
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of like that. That's how the AC propulsion also charged, which is why it was bidirectional.
Right. Yeah.
Was using the AC motor to create DC to put it back into the pack. So it sounds like the Zoe does the same thing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And it does it at three-phase, 43 kilowatts. The downside is it creates quite a lot of electronic noise and like big inrush currents and stuff. So it can cause a lot of circuit breakers to trip. It can cause nuisance circuit breakers.
I mean, you're pulling 43 kilowatts. That would just burn my house down.
I mean, around here, you have to ensure that each plug or each phase is on its own run. So it's kind of hard to do. I mean, we don't all have 3 phases at homes anyway. Joanne had a question on supercharging, which doesn't apply to the Roadster drive, but it does apply to your Model 3 drive from previously. So if on the chat, the question was, what percentage did you use superchargers versus other charging stations, and what was the total cost of charging for the trip? Now, the good thing about having you on, Dean, is you've done this trip twice, and though it doesn't apply to the Roadster, it does apply to the Model 3. I don't know if you remember an answer for that one.
So the cost, first of all, I'll cover the cost. So the cost of the trip for the Model 3, I'm not sure what it actually cost. You'd have to ask David Peeler would be the man to ask for that because I can't remember.
Well, on a side note, I thought it was quite funny that David Peeler wore exactly the same outfit he wore 10 years ago on the drive. His only complaint, I'm sure, was the fact that there are now these stickers all over the car that changed the nature of the experiment, and his co-drivers were different, so that changed the nature of the experiment as well. But I'm sure that's the parts of David that makes David, right? So
it was amazing. Yeah. I was very impressed. He's still got his original Roadster T-shirt as well. He's obviously looked after that. I think he needs to frame that now. So the cost for the trip, I'd be guessing how much it cost, to be honest with you. And I'll have a guess. I think it was about £65, something like that. So what's that, about $90? I think in the Model 3. And in the Roadster, the best I've managed to work out, I think it was about £45 in the Roadster. So most of the charging that we were using was the general use motorway service station charging network, which costs around 30 to 35 pence per kilowatt hour. On the Roadster trip, we used some of the Ionity network, which is almost double that price, around double, about 69 pence per kilowatt hour. We used on the Model 3 trip, we used, I think we used a version 2, a version 3, and 2 Ionity superchargers. So yeah, the cost with the Ionity can get expensive, but it's still better than petrol or diesel. Although there's somebody, I don't know if you guys will have heard of him, is he does a lot of motorbike road racing in the UK, and he's become a bit of a celebrity and done some TV programs and stuff. A chap called Guy Martin. He's had attempts at speed records and things, and he recently did a program on the national television. I think it was on Channel 4 about electric vehicles, and he went from Lincolnshire, which is not far from where I live, to John O'Groats and back, and allegedly it cost £280, and said it would have been cheaper to do it in a diesel, which I am absolutely sure is complete FUD. I have no idea how it could have cost that much. I really don't. It's like, well, I'm sorry, I do have one idea of how it might have cost that much.
He's including his hotel stay.
Possibly. But yeah, it was really nice to do the run just after that program to kind of bust that myth as well. But I think the only thing the only benefit of the doubt I can give them is if it wasn't a complete lie just to try and stop people buying electric cars. It may have been they have like a charge on the car, on the card. So if you have a charge and it costs £3, they deduct £20 from your credit card, and then a few days later it sorts itself out and it deducts only £3.
Right, it's like a reserve,
Yeah. My wife was like, "You spent £200 on charging." I was like, "No, I haven't. It's fine." And then I thought, maybe that's what's happened with the Guy Martin thing. Maybe they got the statistics wrong.
So they register your card on the networks. You don't have to have a RFID card that you sign up for ahead of time. And then
it's like any time you it's like hotels a lot of the time. If you check into a hotel, they'll put the charge on your card for way more than what your actual cost is, and then they'll reduce it later. Yeah, well, yeah, it's because of that, or it's because, what if you stay longer? I don't know. There's a lot of things where they do that. They'll check your card for more than what you're gonna.
Yeah, so they pre-authorize for higher than what it is, and then.
Or if you open a tab at a bar or something like that, sometimes they do it.
Yeah.
So they charge that at every charge point. So every charge point is gonna, like Jamie said, charge more than what you would be using. But then you did get charged, because if it appears on your credit card statement, I mean, you do have to pay that, don't you? Or
if you look at your
login,
it'll show it, and then it'll take it off. So yeah, it's on there for a few days.
Yeah, that's right. It appears on the statement, but you don't have to pay it. It automatically reduces down to the actual amount that you did pay.
So then it shows a credit of that. Then hopefully on the credit card statement, there's a credit.
I don't know exactly how it works. It kind of, on my credit card, it just shows us like Genie Point charging station, £20.
Wow.
And then in a few days, that £20 changes down to like £3.
You're using the term statement. Are you talking about online when you look at the status of your card, or on the actual billed statement?
Online, before I get the actual official statement.
Correct. Yeah, so that's a reserve. So it's reserved on that, and then it adjusts to whatever the actual billed amount is, and that makes sense on your on what you're saying.
Yeah,
I think a lot of those people who do it, like, I don't know, I always figure that they're, driving too fast or something like that, but that still doesn't make, like, $280 seems like a lot. The other thing is they're comparing the wrong thing.
$350.
Yeah, the other thing is they're comparing the wrong thing. A lot of the time they do these things and they're like, oh, supercharging costs more than this and that and the other thing. It's like, well, but you're not supercharging all the time. Like, you do this once. You're doing this once.
Supercharging. So, like, the supercharging network is, I've not checked because I'm very fortunate. I've got free supercharging with my car, but is it, I think, about 25p a kilowatt hour?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
and Ionity is 69. So they cherry picked the most expensive charge point in Europe. You know,
right. I mean, I could do that here. I was up in LA yesterday, and I never look at gas stations anymore, but I saw $5.50 a gallon. I could say that that's the national average price, and it's not. You know,
exactly. Yes, it's cherry picking information to make a point, and yeah, frustrates me. But there you go. So yeah, so we did the whole journey for about £45. Yeah, it was pretty cheap, and a lot less than it would have cost. It would have been at least double that in diesel.
And there's news saying that the petrol or the gas stations are being limited because there's a lack of, I think.
Well, you can't even get gas. In UK, you can't even make the drive right now. You can't even get gas.
That's what it says around here. That things are pretty bad over there.
Yeah, I've been pretty smug. I've tried not to show off about it too much, but yeah, I've been quite fortunate. I mean, people say like, I can't get any fuel, can't get any petrol, and I'm like, well, I haven't got any petrol for like the last 7 years. So what are you on about?
There's every time you hear people saying, oh, what if the power goes out? How are you going to fuel your car? And it's like, look, every time a hurricane comes through, the gas cars have lines for weeks afterwards, and the electric cars are just plugging into the wall, and it's fine. This happens every time. This happens when there's a gas shortage in England, you know.
Yeah.
Because if the power goes out, you can't run the gas stations either.
Yeah.
But if the gas runs out, you can run the power station.
In the UK was caused more by panic buying. I think it was caused entirely by panic buying. I don't think there was ever actually a shortage. I don't know,
not entirely, but yeah, obviously panic buying was the bigger thing. But when the point is, the oil market is so set on very tight amounts of supply chain management. Like no one wants to be over or under by 1%. So as soon as you are over or under by 1%, everything just goes nuts.
I think that's what's happened. The story I heard that it was just 12 trucks that they were short of out of a fleet of, I think it was 400 or something like that.
Oh, gee.
So it was like, it was like a couple of percent down due to, I think they said it was the lorry driver shortage that we've got at the minute. So there's a few percent down, but when that story got into the news, then everybody thought, oh my God, like, we're going to be short of fuel, let's go and fill up. And then because everybody did that, everybody else did it, and then before you know it, huge problem.
And it was something like 40% of gas stations in the UK were out of fuel last week or something, right?
Yeah,
it's insane. Like 4,000 out of 7,000 stations or something like that.
Yeah.
And then electric car interest spiked by 1,800%.
Yeah,
literally, like the searches. Someone was managed. We got a lot of press releases about this, but someone who looked at the amount of searches, it went up by 18 times in 1 week.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, it's good. I think the thing I'm really pleased about really is that the writing is really on the wall now for the oil industry. They can't move anywhere. They put the prices up to make more profit. It drives more people to buy electric cars. They put the prices down to make less profit. They try longer, but it's not going anywhere.
It's really interesting to me that the UK is doing well on this, because I think that correct me if I'm wrong, I think the UK driving culture is full of Luddites. Like there's definitely a lot of, the F1 fans who just they hate everything. When the new V6 hybrids came in, they were like, let's put trumpets on the back of the cars so they're louder. Like, what is this nonsense?
Yeah.
So
that's kind of funny, because Dean's Twitter handle is Dean Fielding F1. So that makes you an expert on countering Jamie's statement there. Don't
you? But you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
There's a strong level of traditionalism, I think, in the UK driving culture.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see the UK being one of the earliest targets for electrifications in Europe. You guys have moved forward from 2040 to 2035 to 2030, and that's under the Tories. too.
Yeah.
Surprising.
It is surprising. Although personally, I've always said that I think that the 2040, 2035, 2030 thing. Well, there are two things about that, right? So, one is what's presented in the media as an outright ban. You're not able to buy fuel, petrol or diesel car after that date.
Right.
For one, you'll still be able to buy second-hand ones.
Sure. Yeah.
Two, in the small print, it says something along the lines of petrol or diesel powered only.
Yeah. Right.
You'll
There'll
still
be
be able to
hybrid.
buy a hybrid. So once it's kind of been watered down that much, it's quite woolly, really. I don't think it's that meaningful. But I personally think it's irrelevant anyway, because the way that Tesla are pushing forward with the Model 3 and advancing electric vehicles, I think in 5 years' time, you would be mad to want to buy a petrol or diesel car. In the UK.
You're mad. You're mad now.
You're mad. Well, but I'm trying to be polite and kind to people who have to tow a caravan 600 miles in one day without stopping.
Yeah, uphill both ways, because you guys are full of mountains in the UK. Of course, they're all going to the mountains. The 1,000-foot mountain that you have.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, isn't that called a hill around here?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's a molehill.
But that's and I just wrote about this a week or two ago. Norway had planned their phase out by 2025, and they don't have a law saying no gas cars, but that was the target, to have functionally zero gas car sales by 2025, and they're going to hit it before that. If you look at the trend, they're trending towards hitting it in this April, 6 months from now. Now, of course, there will still be some car sales. People will buy their Porsches and people will buy pickup trucks and stuff like that. But, it was 20% only gas powered last year. It's 10% only gas powered this year. And the number just keeps going down.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to happen everywhere that there's a target, because as soon as people coalesce around a date and say, we're done with gas cars by 2030, why would you be buying a gas car in 2027? Because you're not going to be able to sell it to somebody in 2030. You're not going to be able to fuel it and all that stuff. And people are going to see this and they're going to say, well, why this doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not going to buy the second most expensive thing that I own in my life, put the second most money I've ever spent on anything into something that's going to be useless in 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the date thing's it's helped start the debate and get it in the headlines in the newspapers and stuff, but it's kind of
right. I think they're useful because it does set a signal to everybody to say, be ready for this, because the public needs to be ready for it. The public needs to say, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be buying a gas car because it's not going to be useful. And the manufacturers need to realize that they need to get their stuff turned around. But I think it's going to be the public and the buying decisions that make a bigger deal for it.
I heard an interesting Luddite story last week that their kind of conspiracy theory is that this petrol panic buying has been sparked by the government to make people get electric cars.
Of course. Because that's exactly what the government wants to do, is make themselves look like idiots. Well, wait, I'm sorry. It's the Tories in the UK. They do want to make themselves look like idiots, don't they? That's all they ever do. It's Boris Johnson. We can't say that he doesn't want to make himself look like an idiot.
He's good at that, to be fair. I still think of him coming down on the zip wire with the British flag.
Right. I was thinking the exact same thing, with the hair everywhere.
On what was the comedy program he used to be on all the time? Have I Got News for You or something like that? Was it he sometimes presented or was on? I don't know.
I didn't know that, but that makes sense.
Yeah. It's definitely not the government trying to stop us buying petrol. They really want us to carry on buying petrol. But it's interesting how people think sometimes. I think that's one of the things that some of the newspapers, particularly like the Daily Mail and the Express, tend to run these headlines to make it feel like the government's forcing everybody to have to buy an electric car by 2030, and you're not going to have a choice.
Are we calling the Daily Mail a newspaper now? Is that what we're doing?
I'm being old-fashioned. I don't buy newspapers.
tabloid, toilet paper, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Entertainment.
Yeah, so
It's an entertainment program.
Yeah,
yeah,
of course.
yeah, that old chestnut.
Well, excellent.
Yeah, so yeah.
So, Dean, speaking of the FUD fighting and everything else, how has the reception been to the drive? To to the public that you were focused on, and bringing a focus on zero carbon world.
It's been very good. So I suppose I ought to finish off the actual drive. So after that hiccup, that was user error for not understanding how the charging thing worked on my car that had just been fitted, everything went really, really well after that again. A great drive up through Scotland. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to see much of the scenery because it was dark by this time. And at the end, we went through some torrential rain. Wipers on full. Really pleased that we got a new set of tyres. Really windy, bendy roads that I didn't know, so I couldn't really push the car too hard because I didn't know how tight the next corner was going to be and if I was going to go off a cliff, like Italian job style. It was pretty treacherous on the last leg, and then we eventually arrived at John O'Groats at 4 o'clock, and it just clipped over to 4:01 as we pulled up in the morning, and got to the signpost and had our photos taken in the misty, cold darkness, and then went up to the hotel, which of course is a pretty remote, isolated place, and there's no 24-hour reception. So because we'd done so well and managed to arrive, even with all the messing about that I had with the charger and the delay of the traffic on the near Bristol, we were still an hour ahead of our best schedule that we'd got. We did the journey in 21 hours and I think it was about 30 minutes. It was amazing. But the problem with that was, of course, the hotel was shut. So I had to sleep in the Roadster. There we go. I had to sleep in the Roadster for a few hours until it opened, and then at 8 o'clock we went in and they very kindly made us some breakfast. And then we all parted our separate ways. Glyn and David and Evan took the Model 3 back, and I started the steady journey heading back. I visited my cousin who lived in Aberdeen. I met him on the way back, and had a really nice journey back. Enjoyed the scenery. It's fantastic seeing the scenery through Scotland, and I just managed to get home in time for my mum's birthday, which I wasn't expecting to be back for, to be honest. We ended up a whole day ahead of schedule. So I planned on arriving in John O'Groats on Sunday evening and then travelling back to Aberdeen on Monday and then getting home Tuesday evening, and ended up getting back Monday evening to Sheffield. So I was really pleased, the icing on the cake was I managed to see my wife, my girls, and my mum on her birthday. So,
well, that's good because you got to keep your mom happy, man. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
Excellent.
So it was a huge success. It's managed to we've raised around £5,000 for the charity, which we'll use to expand the destination charging network and obviously benefit people all across the UK with that, and then obviously raise awareness of the charity. We're talking about it now and improve social media followers and things, I think it's been a great success. And I think that the nicest thing that I saw was on the electric article. There was one guy commented and said, "I'm so pleased something along the lines of, I'm so pleased these guys have done this. Next time someone says that your EV battery will end up in a landfill site, I'll point them to this article." I was like, yes, that is what we've done it for. So just really, really pleased that the whole thing worked and it made it, and an 11.5-year-old battery pack still works. Shock horror, and did it 16 hours faster than it did originally.
Cool.
Yeah, it was, no, sorry, 14, 15 hours anyway. A lot faster than it was done last time.
Feel free to send as many tens or hundreds of thousands of people to that article as you like, by the way.
Certainly will. I'll send as many as I can.
So this is what the stations look like, right? Because in the UK and for US EV drivers, we're used to tethered cables because that is the standard in the US, where you
Right.
pull
Okay.
up and there's a cable. Whereas in other parts of the world, you're supposed to bring your own cable and plug into these sockets, and that's what the chargers are that you guys provide, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So,
Huh.
a couple of advantages to that. One is that they tend to be a little bit more reliable because the highest wear and tear item is the cable. And the other thing is that in the UK we have the Menike's Type 2 connector, which is now the European standard for all electric vehicles for the AC charging, and fits in with the CCS DC charger as well. And then there's the Type 1 connector. So obviously a lot of the early EVs, the Nissan Leaf, I think it was mostly the Japanese and some of the French commercial vehicles that had Type 1 connectors. So obviously if you've got a tethered connection and you turn up, you can't plug in, you need an adapter. So if you bring your own cable, socket is a Type 2 connector in the charge point.
So some guy drove his Roadster from South.
Go ahead.
So yeah, it's they're pretty reliable and they just work. I've brought the little I've got the original Land's End to John O'Groats window sticker here. You can see it in there.
That's funny.
That's the original one from first time around. I keep that in the car, it did the journey again this time. So it was a great trip. Hard work, but yeah, I think great sense of achievement, and it was really nice having everyone who donated and got the names on the car as well. If anyone would still, obviously, if they'd like to make a donation to the charity, we're still updating the names on the car. We're going to have a plaque on the car, so I think anyone donates £30 or more, be able to have their name on the car forever. We're going to keep that in there.
That's a zerocarbonworld.org. So it's not a .org.uk. It's just .org, correct?
That's right. Yeah. You can make a donation on there. So we'll be updating that, and that'll stay in the car's piece of history and flood fighting and hoping to decarbonise transport. So
all the while showing that it's fun, right? That's a key part of it too.
Yeah, that's it. It works, and
Dean, thank you so much. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say or any last questions from the group, but I guess I have one question. So if you were to choose between Land's End or John O'Groats, which one would you rather be stuck at for over a day, right? So which one's more, as a destination, if your car were there and you couldn't go anywhere else, would you rather be in Land's End or would you rather be in John O'Groats?
I suppose in some respects they're similar places, as in they're both quite remote because there's obviously nowhere else to go. I think the roads around John O'Groats are nicer to drive. I think they're a bit more open and suit the roadster a little bit more. Although I must say I don't like cold, and it's colder, and you can tell at Land's End you get the real sense of the Gulf Stream, and there's like this, the air feels so humid and moist and warm. It's strange. There's all like lichens on the rocks and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I'd personally go with Land's End so I can do some surfing and it's a bit warmer for selfish reasons.
Good reasons. That's why I asked the question. I mean, haven't visited either, though. You keep threatening me that when I visit the UK next, I should do this drive, and I don't know if I'm crazy enough to try to do it in one day or or maybe break it up into several, but that sounds like an interesting drive to do, and especially in an electric car, because isn't there now a DC fast charging station on one end or the other, or both?
Both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, both ends.
They used to just be AC, right, on each end?
That's right. Yeah. Both ends. And there's a zero carbon world charge point at John O'Groats as well, at the Seaview Hotel, where we stayed. They've had one for years, so yeah, it's really helpful. There's a thing that's got really popular, especially during the lockdown where people can't fly abroad. It's called the North Coast 500, tour around the coastal roads of Scotland, and amazing scenery and stuff. But yeah, so that's really, really popular. Like every other car that we saw when we were in Scotland was a motorhome doing this North Coast 500.
So the latest Bond movie has been released this past weekend in the U.S. And speaking of Scotland, the drives around Scotland and everything. So would you suggest, as a marketing effort, for people to watch Skyfall again to get an idea of what Scotland's like? I think, if I remember correctly, that's where Skyfall was filmed, correct?
Yeah, I confess I haven't seen the latest Bond film yet. I missed out on that one so far. I think nearly all of my friends have, but I do like a good Bond film, although I'm still waiting for him to get an electric car.
Yeah, that would be awesome. The next Bond. It won't be Daniel Craig at that point. It'll be the re-release of whoever is doing it next.
Yeah, whoever's doing the next
Look,
one.
if they put him in a Jaguar not Jaguar, what was it they put in? BMW for a few years. They should put him in an electric next. I mean,
they were talking about doing the electric something, but I guess it fell through.
Excellent. So, Dean, you have last word on our thing here. I don't know if anyone else have any questions. Are we good?
It was supposed to be the Rapide E was supposed to be the next one, but I guess it didn't happen.
Yeah, that was an Aston Martin, right? Because they decided not to make that.
Right. Well, that could be part of it too. But I think they changed the idea even before they stopped making the car.
Got it.
Or it was all nonsense because apparently it was reported by the Sun. So
there you go.
Probably just made up.
Yeah.
You guys, here's the thing. We have a terrible media environment here in the US, but man, the tabloids in the UK are just insane.
Yeah. I got an interesting direct message from somebody who worked at one of the main tabloids when I challenged them about a particular negative electric car article that they published. And I basically found out that it wasn't that person that had published it. It was somebody else. But they had to put their name on it, and they'd had a standing argument in the newsroom about it, and the directors of the newspaper and editors forced them to publish that. Otherwise, he would have lost his job, and he couldn't afford to lose his job. He hated it, but he had a mortgage and kids, and he was forced to publish an article that he knew was wrong about an electric car, and he actually direct messaged me to apologise.
Well, that sounds about right.
That's awful.
It is terrible. I feel for the guy, but I think he needs a different job.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you that Seth at Electrek has never done that with me. In fact, when I write articles that are very inflammatory, he often goes in and makes them more inflammatory.
Well, that's what it's all about.
It gets more clicks, Jamie. That's what it does.
I mean, I'll be talking shit about oil or whatever, and he'll go in and add some dumb meme to it, embed a meme in there, and I'm like, Seth, come on, you're just making me look a little unprofessional here.
Yeah,
he's the publisher. That's what they get to do.
I just wanted to say thank you to Jamie as well for publishing the article. Brilliant article.
Yeah. Who wrote that excellent, amazing article?
I don't know. Some genius. Yeah.
Some dude named Jameson Dow, Jamie.
Oh, that's a pretty good name. It's close to mine.
I know. It's excellent.
Yeah, and I'd also just like to credit Tesla as well for building a brilliant car. I didn't mention the efficiency. So we worked it out at about 220 watt hours per mile, or about almost 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. So obviously, considering we had a cold start and a bit of rain and doing 70 miles an hour most of the way, phenomenal efficiency for vintage technology.
Yeah, that's about when I'm in good weather and trying to kind of hypermile a little bit. I can do a little bit better than that, but that's about the same kind of number. It's easy to be efficient when you've got like 1 meter of cross-sectional area.
Yeah, that does help a lot.
One square meter.
Those wheels are really not aerodynamic. They're designed to blast cool air at the brakes.
Yeah.
And the car isn't particularly designed for aerodynamics. It's designed for performance. So, impressive. I think the tires helped, but yeah, it just
Yeah, I could see the tires helping, but it's such a small car, and that there's just not much resistance there,
No, it rolls well, and I think that the other thing, the whole journey has just proven that it's another nail in the coffin of the combustion engine, and that I think that the barrier to adopting an electric vehicle now is your main vehicle is almost entirely a psychological one. I think that's really, really important to prove that. I think the last hurdle now is kind of getting people into that concept of living with an electric car and owning one and realizing how convenient it is. I always tell people when they say how do you charge it and how long does it take and where do you take it to charge it and things like that. And if you've got a driveway, all of those questions are irrelevant. And I think until someone's lived with an electric vehicle, you just can't get your head around that change and that concept that it's more convenient.
I always say that range anxiety is for people who don't drive electric cars. Because as soon as you get one, you just don't think about it anymore. It's just not a concept that's really on your mind. You accept, how it works. You understand how it works, and you use it the way that it is meant to be used. The same way that you make the same compromises for a gas vehicle. It's just that you've been used to a certain set of compromises your whole life, and those are normal to you. So moving to a different set of compromises is going to make you feel like they're different and new, when really in terms of total difficulty, they're lower. And so I always highlight convenience as like my number one reason for an electric car, because people don't expect that. They say, well, I thought the whole point was that it's not convenient and it's better in other ways. No, convenience is my number one favorite part about it. I am a lazy person, a profoundly lazy person. And that's why I like my electric car.
I think humans are generally, if we're honest.
So in terms of, I have a question. So in terms of driving or handling the car, so I don't have a roadster. I think Jamie and you, Dean, and obviously, if not all of you, most of you have a roadster. In terms of handling, how does it compare to the 3 or to the S?
The 3 handles better, but the Roadster's more fun.
The Roadster is a go-kart, right? The 3 is a much better designed car. It's more efficient because it's got more storage and all the size that you have in it.
Right.
You're not giving up as much. I mean, comparing it to, the S is the least efficient one out of the cars we have in our garage. But that's only because we don't have a Model X. Right, Dean, I think you have a Model X, right?
That's right, yeah.
So you can go to the inefficient by driving a Model X, and you can go to the efficient by going to the Roadster. If you had a Model 3, it's the most efficient out of all of them in terms of being able to do more.
Okay.
So my Model X, I've never reset the efficiency, the trip on it, and it's done, I think, 47,000 miles. The average watt hours per mile is, I think it's about 385 watt hours per mile, which is quite efficient for a Model X as well, because it's only a 75. I usually run the 20-inch rims, and I don't like to. I don't drive like a complete idiot most of the time. So, and obviously the Model 3, I think usually averages about 250 watt hours per mile. significantly less than the Model X. But yeah, in terms of how the Roadster is to drive, when you get in it, there's no sound deadening, or it's kind of really pared back. Hardly any luxuries, although it does have heated seats, which is nice. But it's like it is obviously built with Lotus, and they build performance cars, and for maximum performance you want lightness, and if you want lightness you have to remove all the luxuries. They made it as lightweight as possible. Now, the battery pack is heavy. You can still feel that compared with an Elise. I'm told, because I've not actually driven one, but I've driven other similar cars and raced go-karts for a while. But it definitely has the go-kart feel with the weight at the back end, and the steering so accurate. The way you can kind of throw it into corners, and it's definitely a lot of fun. But
that sounds like a real fun car. It does sound.
It's fun,
it's not
but
necessarily better than Model 3. I think it's amazing to see how Tesla have developed in 10 years to go from the Roadster to the Model 3.
Yeah,
it's incredible. Really, it's more impressive when you get in the Roadster and think, wow, this is where they came from.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like a sports car. The thing with the handling is that specific to the handling, since the Roadster has the battery behind the seats and in front of the rear axle, it handles a little bit like a mid-engine sports car. And it also has a little bit higher center of gravity than I don't know about the specific center of gravity, but in terms of related to the size of the car, there's more weight a little higher up. Whereas in the Model 3, it's all on the bottom, which really helps a lot. And the Model 3, the weight is in the middle between the wheels, which reduces rotational inertia. So you get a little bit more rotational inertia with the Roadster because of the way the battery is set, and it's just kind of a weird, like, all the traction is on the rear wheels, which is great because you never, even when it's raining, like, it's very hard to get those wheels to slip at all, because there's just so much weight over the rear wheels. But that also leads to the possibility of snap oversteer if you ever do get a little. But that's fun. That's very fun if you know how to handle it.
Until you hit the wall. But
the back can really pendulum all the way around on you real fast. So the Model 3 is just a lot more predictable, I think, than the Roadster is in terms of handling. But they're both really fun in their own specific ways, and the steering on the Roadster is great because since it's manual steering, you can feel literally everything that's going on the road.
So there's no power steering on the Roadster.
Oh, really? It's manual steering?
Yeah,
it's an upper body workout too.
Yeah, you can't park
at low speeds.
Hard to park the thing.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing I'd say that the biggest, it's hard to get in and out of, but it's just so low. You feel like you're sat on the floor. So you have like some small compact, like a Ford KA kind of little tiny car comes alongside you, and you're looking up at it out of the window.
It's hilarious.
Great big SUV.
Yeah. What's that smart car SUV next to me? I had a Corolla pull up next to me once, and I thought it was some new Toyota SUV. It's the Corolla. Everything is huge. I sat in so I test drove the Audi e-tron GT, and they're doing at the Audi thing, they were doing like this press event, and they say, this is the lowest, except for the R8, this is the lowest Audi we've ever made. It's only like half an inch taller than the R8 or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so it's really low. So I get in the car and I'm driving around and I'm like, oh, it's nice to sit up high. Because I was in like a normal sized vehicle, and my Roadsters, you're literally as low as you can get. There's nothing lower. It's as low as a Ford GT40. Same height, 44.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned that car, because the Roadster actually reminds me of that car in some ways. It has some kind of almost like Le Mans GT look to it somehow.
Yeah,
that's the same car that was in Ford versus Ferrari, the movie, right?
Yeah. Well, a famously low car. I mean, that's why they called it the GT40. They had to put a bump in it because Don Gurney was too tall to fit in it.
That's right. Yeah.
So the GT40,
Oh, wow.
the one that was driven by Don Gurney, has a little bump over the driver's side. They call it the Gurney bump because he was 6'2" and he couldn't fit in the car.
Yeah. The GT42, that one was it then?
So
Interesting.
the actual not Don Gurney, whatever his name is. Anyway, the actual car, the homologated version of the car is 44 inches tall, but the race version was 40 inches tall.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
So, Dean, thanks so much for joining us. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
chat about, but I understand it's later in your day, so I'm cognizant of the fact that your day starts tomorrow.
It's over 10
8 hours earlier than ours. So.
Yeah, it's been a nice golden autumn day here today. It's been sunny and it's been not too cold. It's been nice.
Excellent. Well, thanks once again for joining us. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Dean.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.